Now, because this is a rainy day, I thought I'd spend a little time here cleaning up I had this bike since it was new, so it's my baby, one of my babies anyway. What I wanted to share, if it's at all possible to share this easily, to polish this engine up, it's not a 5-minute job, that's for sure. It's not a one-day job, in fact. But over the years, what I've been doing is polishing one part at a time as I had a part off, or when I had the carburetors off, or whatever. But I learned a lot of little tricks. One of them is good old-fashioned Harbor Freight drill. I wanted to show this. You get this pack of buffing wheels that this looks like. And when I bought this, I never even used this for many years. I said, oh, what is that for? Well, I found out that you can take that. It looks like fur or wool or something on there. You can take that and just put a little bit of very light compound or cleaner wax, and you can see whatever happens with aluminum, it turns black instantly. But here's what I wanted to show. A lot of people, well, you could spend a lot of money on this for sure, but you can, in Harbor Freight, you can get this stuff so cheap. There's a regular big buffing wheel, and I'll show what I use this for. I call this the big one anyway. The worst thing these have is they don't really tighten up. You have to put an extra washer behind it. These are real handy for polishing. I always have ones different diameters so I can get in where the big one doesn't fit in, the little one does. Super, super handy, these little sponges for putting on wax. One of the things that I found, I bought this for Vince to do his wheels, and it's self-destructed, so maybe I was just being a little too rough on it, I don't know. The little mandrel that has the I don't know what, that 3M pad on it. Anyway, I think you get the picture. Now, I also make my own, and in fact, whoa, here's the case of something that I had that has a mandrel, and I wrapped a microfiber around it, put a zip tie on it, and I wanted to get somewhere. The point is, you can't do any of this with one tool. I've got a little one. These are super, super handy. These are really nice. There's a little tiny one. I got some of these from, I basically got most of them from Harbor Freight. Very inexpensive. There's only a few that are like $7, $8. Most of them are $2 or $3 each. So you can be a big spender. And I literally have a whole bucket of them. Now, another thing that's handy, and I've used this, metal polish. Although, believe me, you can use any polish to polish aluminum. Toothpaste will be fine. Just wanted to show. Here's another one that I remember. It's a ball end one. I used it to get in somewhere. Over the years, and I've got a lot of hours into polishing this engine. Believe it, it's not like a 5-minute job. A lot of people don't really appreciate how much time goes into this. I have just an endless supply of these little mandrels. Okay, number 2, the material. You can buy this real aggressive compound, black compound for doing steel. And of course, what I like to do is put a little bit of wax on here from a candle, a little bit of this. And that's a very aggressive cut. That'll just cut right into whatever. Super high cutting material. The black is the roughest. Anyway, this is the best choice. If you only have one compound, this is fine. This is the best. You can also use the orbital buffers on big things like the side covers or here. But most of the time, what you're trying to do is get in different areas. Another thing that's real handy, this is a painting stick that's probably 100 years old, with a microfiber. And this, whether you want to polish the fins or in between them, this lets you get out the road grime, the goop. Now, here's the neat thing. This engine was actually polished about 10 years ago. I remember spending an endless amount of time on it. As years, and you can see the grit that comes off of it. As the years go by, or in my case, what will happen, because it's out in a garage, the aluminum, if you go out in your garage on a cold, damp day, you'll see it as all little, looks like fungus growing on the aluminum. Well, that's oxidation. And what happens if on a rainy day like this, it's probably as bad as it's ever going to get. But this is a real handy tool. Where it's good is if you got a little spot you got to buff or clean or polish or get in, or in between the spark plug wires. See, a lot of times what happens is the reason people don't know how to polish something is not that they don't know how to, they don't have the tool. And most of the time, or some of the time I guess, you have to make the tool. Well, let me just show this real quick. Another couple of things that, this would be one example. A wheel like this. Again, I don't use anything that I can't buy at Harbor Freight inexpensively. And if I just take this little piece here, for instance, right away take the microfiber. You make more of a problem for yourself if you put too much compound on. You're always better if you, now this is, watch this wheel, this one is made to go in here. A lot of times when you're getting in a little delicate area, it's better not to use full power because you don't want to have the thing catching a chunk and take a chunk out of the gas tank. Now one of the things that I used to do, I used to take the bolts out one at a time. I had my buffing wheel and buff the head of the bolt, maybe once a year. Well, with some of these tools, now this will do one of them, this will do the Allen bolts here, but there's another thing you can do, and I've got it made here. I made it. I ought to share this. You can tell I didn't set this up years ahead of time, Steven Spielberg wise. Anyway, I'll demonstrate this. You'll find the other thing. I took one of these, and you've got to develop a center. It's like when you work in a machine shop, you've got to develop a center on that. So I got to find something here that has a center. Now these big ones, I'm going to have to hold it. But it doesn't take much. It gets off what amounts to be about a year of oxidation. So on a day like today, I'll probably spend 2 or 3 hours. Then tomorrow do the other side of the engine, or whatever. A nice thing about this shape, you can get in here. Now what I found, there's a lot of good metal polishing videos on YouTube. Some of them make it sound more complicated than it needs to be. And some of them are just, well, I'm not sure if they're just trying to sell you a product or not. But an example is like down here. Now what I want to do, I want to get in between the fins maybe a 1/16 of an inch up into there. I have a tool for that. And what this is going to do, because it's a soft pad, it assumes that shape. I'm not sure if you, I'll do a little close-up at the end of this so you can, if you do this once a year, I mean, obviously, if you're going to shows and stuff, you could do this a lot more. But what I used to do years ago is just wait until spring, till there was no danger of it going below freezing, and I'd go over each one of the bikes, maybe one day at a time, on days I had time. But the problem is now we have 8 bikes to deal with, and we have other people's bikes, and so I try to jam this in wherever I have time and energy, and you can imagine I'm running out of energy too. But now a nice area like this part of the side case. We'll show this up close. And you can see that pretty much comes right up. But the thing is, once it's polished, to rejuvenate it and bring it back is really a relatively easy thing. Now it's funny, when I was up at Vince's and I brought this bucket of stuff so that Max could do a little buffing on his dad's bike, on Bob's bike, and Vince says, you got a laundry basket. And I says, well, you know what? I happen to be watching, years later, I've been doing this for a long time. I turn on YouTube and the guy from New York City, the guy that's supposed to be the world champion or whatever he is, I look and he's got a laundry basket of stuff too. But he's so young, I had to have it invented it first. Anyway, a lot of cool little things, like getting the bolt heads. I have that little tool for that. A little radiator cap. So my point is, once you spend that initial time to do the polishing, to rebuff it and clean it all up and make it look like new. Here's another thing. Let's just show this real quick. This little guy. There's always, and the mistake is thinking you're going to buff out an engine with one wheel or tool or whatever, or you go buy one thing. You got to have a lot of tools, a lot of little different things to get in places. I'm not sure you can see this in real life, but it comes right up. In a matter of a minute, you'll have it really looking nice. Now this one is actually one of the ones that's getting loose. When it gets loose, the trick is you got to get a screwdriver down in here. In fact, we'll just skip that. We got plenty of these. I don't know why I'm fooling around with that. Show one other thing, the soft pad. Another beautiful little thing. And what's a good idea if you really do like having a really clean bike and all these little things is get a laundry basket. Hey, your wife can put the clothes in a cardboard box. Let's face it, not that important. The point is, there's a lot of ways to do this. Now we're hoping soon, one of the projects we've tentatively tried to do, well, we're going to try to do this winter, Bob Navola's forks are pretty well beat up. I don't know if we're going to be able to polish them or paint them or what. I'm not sure. But I know one thing. If I do this once a year, and then maybe maybe in the middle of the riding season, if I ride in the rain or whatever, get some of the stuff off it, it'll pretty much stay like that for quite a nice long time. And the trick is, let me get this off. Let me show this up close, personal, whatever you want to call it. And again, now there's a giant difference of the look of a chrome-plated part and a polished aluminum. Polished aluminum has what I think is a beautiful luster. Chrome, not so much. Chrome starts to look, I call it linoleum, like it doesn't have that personality like aluminum does. Aluminum, when it's buffed, when it's polished inside the fins, you can see some of the fins down here, carburetors, some of that, as much work as it is, and there's the old bucket. And what's nice about this, if I go to Vince's or to Bob's, I can just take it with me. It's really, really handy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video.